There are questions that cling to the edges of consciousness like shadows, waiting to be noticed. Are you truly yourself? Or are you only the sum of 1,000 inherited labels, a name handed down, a nationality stamped into your papers, a gender written on your birth certificate? Are these truths of who you are? Or are they masks fitted onto your face before you could even speak? If this world is a stage, as Shakespeare hinted, are you the actor playing a role of your choosing? Or are you a spectator, guided into your seat and told when to clap, when to grieve, when to obey? The freedom you hold so dearly, does it come from the heart of your being? Or is it the illusionary liberty granted by invisible architects of fate to open the door into the story of reincarnation? And the Zodiac Wheel is to step into a vast cosmic theater where every soul has agreed to play a part. But this is not entertainment. It is curriculum. The stage you walk upon is not random. It is designed with frightening precision. Its backdrops painted in the signs of the zodiac. Its lessons carved into the script of time. When you feel déjà vu upon meeting a stranger, or when you walk through a city you've never known and sense that every stone whispers your name, you brush against the truth. You have walked here before. You have loved here before. You have died here before. The ancient mystics understood this dance in a way we have forgotten. They looked at the stars not as fortune tellers, but as librarians, guardians of a record too immense for the human mind alone. They spoke of the Zodiac Wheel not as astrology columns in cheap magazines, but as a temple with 12 chambers, each demanding something of the soul. Aries demanded courage, Taurus demanded grounding, Gemini demanded mind's agility, Cancer demanded the healing of memory, Leo the burning of ego into true body, and Virgo the discipline of refinement. Libra tested the soul in relationship. Scorpio tore the flesh of identity in transformation. Sagittarius sent the seeker into vast horizons of meaning. Capricorn tested responsibility. Aquarius called for service to humanity. Pisces invited surrender into the infinite. Every soul, it was said, must walk these corridors not once, not twice, but over and over until the curriculum has been integrated. Some fail the test of courage and return again into lifetimes of fear. Some fall into the trap of material comfort and linger for centuries in the Taurus chamber, clutching the illusion of safety. Some cannot escape the mirror of Libra and spend ages searching for validation in others, and some souls move steadily, perhaps painfully, toward the upper reaches of Aquarius and Pisces, only to glimpse the hidden 13th gate, where all rules dissolve and the wheel itself vanishes. Yet most of us live our days as though none of this matters. We believe in the randomness of parents and places, in the accidents of jobs and marriages. We think our struggles are personal misfortunes, our addictions private weaknesses, our conflicts unfair burdens. But what if they are lessons chosen before breath? What if the alcoholic father, the betrayal of a friend, the disease knowing that your bones are not punishments but teachers? Teachers you yourself hired in a pre-birth contract, signed willingly in a realm of light before plunging back into the density of flesh. To imagine, for a moment, a vast cosmic boardroom. Souls gather round it, luminous, without age, without body. Charts are spread out across the table. Star maps, planetary alignments, astrological blueprints. Your soul, with full awareness, scans the wheel and points. This life, I will be born under this hour, with this arrangement of stars. This will give me the precise conditions to learn what I did not learn before. Perhaps you chose Saturn pressing against your moon so that you would know the taste of loneliness. Perhaps you chose Venus squaring Neptune so that you would be tempted by illusions of love until you finally learned what love truly means. What you call bad luck may be nothing more than a teacher waiting for you to stop resisting and start learning. But who profits from ignorance? Who benefits when you live without remembering this agreement? There are forces, ancient as empires, that would prefer you never remember. They wrap you in stories of chance and fate. in distractions of media and politics, in rituals of consumerism that keep you from gazing inward, and, like moths chasing artificial light, you are drawn again and again into the cycle of birth and death, never suspecting that even the bright tunnel after death may not always lead to liberation, but often back into the classroom, back into TH. Same lessons under new disguises. One could despair at this picture, imagining life as a prison of endless recycling. Yet despair is only one interpretation. Another is to recognize that the universe is not chaos but curriculum, is to awaken to a staggering truth. You are not here by mistake. You are not broken glass scattered by chance. You are a student in the grandest university imaginable, where the textbooks are stars and the classrooms are human lives themselves, and you are further along than you think. Take Sarah, for example. From the transcript you have entrusted me with, she was an entrepreneur who began 14 businesses in 20 years, each brimming with passion, each abandoned at the first difficulty. To most, she seemed fickle, irresponsible, a restless spirit who could not commit. But in the language of the Zodiac, she was an Aries soul still trapped in the spark of beginnings, addicted to ignition, but terrified of the grind of mastery. She was not failing, she was rehearsing, again and again, until the lesson of true courage ripened into eminence. This is how the Zodiac Wheel unfolds, not as superstition, but as a mirror of the soul's journey. Each struggle, each cycle, each repeating drama is evidence of the lesson still unfolding. And when you step back from the frantic details of your personal story, when you view your life not as an accident, but as curriculum, a strange liberation emerges. You are not trapped, you are engaged in the most sophisticated education system in existence, the School of Human Experience. So, as we begin this exploration, hold on to this question. If life is a school, are you still resisting the lessons, or are you ready to read the curriculum with open eyes? For to read it is to awaken. To awaken is to see through the illusion. And to see through the illusion is to reclaim the freedom you have always had, the freedom not to abandon the wheel too soon, but to walk it with awareness, to graduate when the lesson has truly been integrated. The introduction is but the opening of the gate. Beyond it lie the core themes and concepts, the scaffolding of this cosmic education. To enter deeper into this journey is to examine the pillars that hold the entire edifice in place. The Zodiac Wheel, reincarnation, and the soul's curriculum are not isolated beliefs tucked away in mystical corners. They are part of a greater architecture design so immersive that we mistake it for reality itself. When you wake up each morning and scroll through your phone, when you watch the news and hear the debates of leaders, when you measure your worth through degrees, jobs, and possessions, you are not merely living, you are participating in a carefully constructed classroom. The question is, who designed the syllabus, and who ensures that you keep repeating it until you learn? The ancients saw this clearly. To the Egyptians, the Zodiac was a sacred temple with 12 chambers. To the Vedic seers, it was the cosmic classroom. To Mesopotamian priests, it was the scroll of the soul. In every culture, these symbols were not for predicting trivial daily events, but for tracing the deeper trajectory of consciousness itself. Yet in our modern age, the wheel has been reduced to horoscopes printed between advertisements, stripped of its original purpose. The classroom still exists, but the students have forgotten they enrolled. They wander the halls, convinced they are free, unaware they are still mid-lesson. Consider the promise of freedom in our times. The internet was heralded as a liberation, a tool for connection across continents. Yet its roots lie in military projects, designed not to free humanity, but to control the flow of information. The social media that promised intimacy now thrives on surveillance, on emotional manipulation, on algorithmic nudges that sheep desires and fears with surgical precision. Politicians parade as leaders, but they are actors in a script written long before the cameras roll. Systems of education claim to enlighten, yet often serve to standardize thought, preparing children not to question the script, but to memorize it. Each of these is a modern reflection of what the ancients already warned. The wheel is not always benevolent. It can enlighten, but it can also entrap. The transcript you shared tells of souls who participate in their own curriculum before birth. They choose parents, environments, challenges. Nothing is accidental, yet once incarnated, amnesia sets in. We forget the contract. We stumble through lives, thinking misfortune is punishment rather than assignment, and in this forgetfulness, forces unseen take advantage, just as a teacher might keep a student in remedial classes, until the basics are mastered. So to do cosmic gatekeepers, whether we call them marshals, administrators, or simply universal laws, ensure that lessons repeat. But in the forgetting, repetition feels like imprisonment. It is no coincidence that history recycles the same dramas in new costumes. Empires rise and fall. Wars erupt. Leaders betray. Masses comply. The themes change. Names, but not essence. Let us place this within the zodiac's frame. Each sign is not a personality trait, but a chamber of experience. Aries teaches initiative, but also the danger of impulsiveness. Taurus grounds the soul in matter, but can chain it to comfort. Gemini awakens the mind, but tempts it into endless scattering. Cancer stirs the emotional body, but can trap it in nostalgia and ancestral wounds. Leo radiates authentic essence, but can collapse into ego performance. Virgo disciplines the soul towards service, but risks crippling perfectionism. Libra offers the mirror, relationship, but seduces the self into abandonment. Scorpio transforms through death and rebirth, but may mire in obsession. Sagittarius stretches toward truth, but may harden into dogma. Capricorn builds, but can calcify into duty without joy. Aquarius carries vision for humanity, but may retreat into cold detachment. Pisces dissolves into oneness, but risks escape through illusion. Every chamber is both gift and trap, and reincarnation ensures you walk the corridors again and again until the gift is integrated and the trap releases. What is striking is how the wheel mirrors our collective systems. Look at the global stage. Societies addicted to Aries spark, forever beginning wars and revolutions that never mature. Economy is locked in Taurus hunger for comfort, worshipping material wealth while fearing loss. Media drowning in Gemini's chatter, fragmenting truth into noise. Nations stuck in Cancer's wound. DS replaying ancestral traumas through conflict. Entire industries feeding on Leo's shadow, rewarding performance over authenticity. Religions twisted by Virgo's shadow, demanding purity while punishing humanity. Politics enacting Libra's compromises. Peace built on self-abandonment. Power structures echoing Scorpio's manipulation. Obsession with control masquerading as governance. Philosophy is inflating into Sagittarius dogma, each system claiming ultimate truth. Corporations embodying Capricorn's prison of responsibility, chaining individuals into soulless duty. Technology's refill, acting Aquarius' cold detachment, promising progress while eroding intimacy, and cultures swimming in Pisces fog, numbing themselves with illusions, distractions, and addictions. The Zodiac is not just in the stars, it is etched into the fabric of civilization. And yet, awareness shifts everything. Once a student recognizes they're in a classroom, they no longer mistake assignments for punishments. They see the structure not as oppression but as curriculum. The internet can be both a cage and a key. It depends on whether you consume unconsciously or use it to weave connections that awaken. Social media can enslave with comparison, or it can serve as a stage for authentic voices that cut through the noise. Politics can be theater, but also a mirror revealing collective lessons about power and shadow. Education can standardize, or it can awaken if we remember its original purpose. The soul's contract is both precise and flexible. As the transcript emphasizes, free will exists within the framework of chosen lessons. You cannot rewrite the subject matter, but you can choose how to engage. Like a student in medical school cannot suddenly demand to study poetry. You cannot erase the core challenges you signed up for, but within those challenges lies infinite choice, resistance, victimhood, unconscious repetition or conscious participation, creative adaptation, mastery. In this recognition, you step out of illusion. Fate becomes destiny. Lessons cease to be cages and transform into thresholds. And as you pass through each chamber with awareness, you begin to see the larger design. The wheel is not meant to enslave you forever. It is meant to prepare you for graduation. But graduation requires remembering. It requires piercing through the distractions of our age, through the false freedoms sold to us, through the rituals of control disguised as progress. It requires asking, whose script am I following, and how much of it did I choose myself? The core themes reveal themselves as paradoxes. Freedom exists, but only within structure. Lessons are chosen, yet they feel imposed. The wheel is both prison and pathway. The signs are both teachers and traps, and the soul is both student and author, both learner and designer of its own curriculum. To grasp this is to step out of passive living and into conscious engagement. It is to recognize that nothing, no wound, no relationship, no circumstance is accidental. Everything is part of the alchemy of your evolution. But the alchemy only works if you see it. If you forget, you repeat. If you awaken, you transform. Symbols are not decorations. They are not quaint remnants of forgotten empires. They are technologies of memory. Rituals encoded in geometry. Images that act as bridges between worlds. To enter the deeper symbolic narratives of reincarnation. And the Zodiac Wheel is to realize that the same images repeat not because of coincidence, but because of continuity. They are deliberate echoes, left as reminders and as traps. Why does the eye appear in stone carvings of summer, in Egyptian hieroglyphs, in Masonic lodges, and on the dollar bill? Why does the pyramid rise not only in Egypt, but in Mexico, in Asia, in forgotten islands swallowed by sea? Why do empires across centuries crown their rulers with laurel, wreaths, gold diadems, or sacred oil, as if repeating the same coronation again and again? Because they are not merely honoring leaders, they are reenacting archetypal rites, playing out rituals that tie the present to the cosmic architecture. What we see as spectacle, the elite enact as ritual technology. The Zodiac Wheel itself is such a symbol. At one level, it is a circle divided into 12, an astronomical map of the stars. At another, it is a modeler of consciousness, a mirror of the 12 steps of the soul's curriculum. Every empire that has endured has placed this wheel at its foundation. The Mesopotamians mapped their gods into constellations. The Egyptians built temples aligned with solstices and equinoxes. The Romans named their months after zodiacal archetypes. Even our modern calendars, stripped of myth, still carry the faint traces of this circle. We live inside a symbol so vast we no longer notice it. Consider the cycle of royal funerals and coronations. A king dies, the body is braided with symbols of time clocks stopped, mirrors covered, bells tolling. Days later, a new monarch is crowned, clothed in robes heavy with zodiacal colors. Purple for Pisces, gold for Leo, black for Scorpio. The ritual is not political alone, it is alchemical. It signals to the collective that the will continues, that no death is final. That power is reincarnated through lineages. Bloodlines are not just genetic, they are rivers of ritual memory, vessels that carry archetypes across centuries. When you begin to see this, history becomes transparent. The fall of Rome was not the end of empire, it was a costume change. The eagle that once spread its wings over Roman legions reappears on American seals, the fasces. Bundle of rods once carried before Caesar. reappears carved in marble at government buildings. The same symbols move across centuries like actors changing outfits, and just as your soul reincarnates into new forms while carrying old lessons, civilizations reincarnate through symbols, carrying their archetypal imprints into new disguises. This symbolic continuity is not random. It is the Zodiac Wheel writ large, the curriculum of empires mirroring the curriculum of souls. Aries energy erupts in revolutions, fiery beginnings filled with hope and chaos. Taurus energy calcifies into stable kingdoms obsessed with wealth and possession. Gemini whispers through the chatter of philosophers and the printing press. Cancer broods in ancestral myths, binding nations through blood and soul. Leo glitters in palaces, rulers elevated to the level of sun kings. Virgo sharpens laws and bureaucracies, refining systems to precision. Libra balances treaties and alliances, crafting illusions of harmony. Scorpio festers in secret societies, assassinations, betrayals. Sagittarius blazes through crusades and quests for meaning, philosophy turned into dogma. Capricorn builds cathedrals and empires of stone, authority carved into mountains. Aquarius shatters with revolutions of thought, science, and rebellion. Pisces dissolves boundaries in religion, mysticism, and eventual decay. The cycle of civilization is the cycle of the Zodiac. Empires tour souls in classrooms. The transcript of reincarnation speaks of cosmic amnesia, that souls forget their contract when they incarnate. The same is true of nations. Each revolution believes it is new, yet it is often a repetition of older patterns. Each religion claims revelation, yet its rituals echo older cults. The bread and wine of Christian mass mirrors the offerings of Mithras. The anointing oil of kings echoes Egyptian rites for pharaohs. The chanting of mantras in temples echoes Sumerian incantations. The surface changes, but the pattern remains. Why? Because symbols act as bridges from memory. They ensure continuity, not just of culture, but of consciousness. To repeat the ritual is to call forth the same archetype. To wear the crown is not simply to rule, but to embody the solar principle of Leo. To march in procession at the equinox is to step into alignment with the turning of cosmic time. These symbols remind us, consciously or not, that we are playing parts in a greater script. But here lies the danger. Symbols can awaken, but they can also enslave. When you see a flag and feel pride, when you kneel before an altar and feel awe, when you pledge allegiance or stand in silence for an anthem, you are not merely acting, you are participating in ritual. Your emotions are channeled, your energy woven into patterns older than you can remember. Just as a soul caught in reincarnation forgets it chose its lessons, a citizen caught in national myths forgets their actors in a play. And yet, when you awaken to this, symbols no longer trap, they reveal. The eye ceases to be a sign of surveillance and becomes the reminder that your inner sight is eternal. The pyramid ceases to be a monument of domination and becomes the reminder that every structure is built upon the foundation of consciousness. The Zodiac ceases to be superstition and becomes a mirror of your journey. To see symbols as conscious technology is to reclaim them. To understand that you can write new symbols, enact new rituals, is to step into authorship. The soul's journey, then, is not only personal, it is also collective. Just as you reincarnate through lifetimes, humanity reincarnates through symbols, and as individuals awaken to the patterns, they create cracks in the cycle. A soul who refuses to repeat unconscious lessons opens the possibility of liberation. A civilization that refuses to repeat unconscious rituals opens the possibility of transformation. The question is, will you keep mistaking spectacle for truth, or will you recognize ritual as architecture? Will you continue to walk the wheel blind, or will you trace the symbols until you see their origin? For the Zodiac Wheel is not only written in stars, it is written in monuments, in flags, in crowns, in every repeating image that whispers across time. Remember who you are. If all this were only myth, only story, we could put the book down and return to our routines unchanged. But the Zodiac Wheel is not a tale locked in libraries. It is a living structure that breathes through every moment of your life. To understand it purely as symbol is to miss its practical power. The wheel does not ask you to marvel at its design, it asks you to live with awareness, to integrate its lessons into the grit and pulse of daily existence. This is where philosophy becomes survival, where cosmic language bends into practical meaning. The first integration is awareness. Of energy, fear is not simply an emotion that surges when danger looms. It is fuel for an unseen architecture. It lowers vibration, contracts consciousness, makes the soul more malleable to manipulation. When empires want obedience, they do not only pass laws, they orchestrate fear. When corporations want compliance, they broadcast scarcity. When media outlets want loyalty, they pump a steady rhythm of outrage and panic. Fear, recycled, is one of the oldest forms of ritual magic. It ties you to the wheel by convincing you that safety lies in repeating old patterns, rather than awakening to new possibilities. But the wheel does not only offer traps, it offers escape routes hidden in plain sight. If fear lowers vib, ration, then joy, gratitude, and creation elevate. Rituals of control thrive on war, on grief, on despair. Rituals of liberation thrive on art, on laughter, on love that asks for nothing in return. To paint a canvas, to sing in a crowded street, to hold a child and feel their breathing sync with yours. These are not small acts. They are resistance to the wheel's gravitational pull. They are reminders that consciousness can shift states, that the same energy used to enslave can be transmuted into freedom. The transcript tells us the soul chooses its conditions: the alcoholic parent, the harsh employer, the failed romances are not punishments but classrooms. Integration begins when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift alone alters the entire experience. The tyrant boss stops being an enemy and becomes a lesson in boundaries. The failed love ceases to be humiliation and becomes a lesson in self-worth. The illness stops being cruelty and becomes a lesson in presence. This does not erase the pain, but it refines it into meaning. Meaning is what liberates. But let us go further. What if even the structures we call society are classrooms, designed not by accident but by resonance? Why do you live in this age of surveillance capitalism, of fractured politics, of dizzying technology? Perhaps because your soul required precisely these conditions to awaken, to learn discernment in the fog of misinformation, to learn self-sovereignty in the era of endless propaganda, to learn love in the face of digital loneliness. The wheel has updated its classroom, but the curriculum remains the same: courage, grounding, clarity, compassion, authenticity, service, balance, transformation, meaning, mastery, vision. Surrender. These 12 lessons still pulse through the noise, waiting for your recognition. The archons, or gatekeepers, as some traditions name them, are not demons lurking outside. They are mechanisms of the system itself. They thrive on your unconscious energy. They thrive on your repetition. But the moment you withdraw your energy from their game, their grip weakens. You cannot defeat them with fear. Fear feeds them. You cannot out-argue them with rage. Rage fuels them. But you can starve them by choosing differently. When you notice the fear-inducing headline, but choose not to sink into it. When you notice the ritual of consumerism but choose creation instead of consumption. When you notice the call to division but choose communion, you shift vibration. Every act of love, creativity, and truth weakens the system's grip. This is practical magic. Not magic in robes and chants, but magic in choices, in where you place your attention, in what you allow. To govern your energy, if you live in Aries energy, ask yourself, am I initiating blindly, or am I acting with courage? If you live in Taurus energy, ask, am I clinging to safety, or am I building beauty? If Gemini surrounds you, ask, Am I scattering? Or am I integrating? Each archetype offers its trap, but each also offers its medicine. The medicine is always awareness. To integrate this is to reframe your entire life. The family dinner becomes ritual space, where generations' wounds can be witnessed and healed. The workplace becomes a classroom, where lessons in power and service unfold. The body becomes a temple, where illness and health alike are teachers. Even the city, with its chaos of sirens and screams, becomes a labyrinth for spiritual training, demanding discernment. At every turn, nothing is wasted. Everything is curriculum. The collective, too, is invited into integration. Fear-based politics can dissolve if citizens stop reacting as pawns and begin responding as sovereigns. Media manipulation collapses when awareness refuses to feed it. Consumerist rituals weaken when communities create their own rituals of joy and meaning. Imagine festivals not funded by corporations but born from neighborhoods, where art and music weave people into communion. Imagine education not as standardized memorization, but as initiation into awareness, teaching children to read their own birth charts as contracts of purpose. These are not utopian fantasies, they are glimpses of what happens when humanity remembers the will not as prison, but as map. The transcript mentions that after death, some souls encounter the recycling light and others glimpse the liberation light. The same choice exists now. In life, recycling is unconscious repetition, scrolling through distractions, living in fear, mistaking pain for a punishment. Liberation is conscious creation, choosing meaning, engaging with awareness, recognizing each challenge as curriculum. The light is always available, not just at death, but in every decision. The wheel of reincarnation is not meant to be escaped by fleeing life, by retreating into fantasy, or bypassing responsibility. Its true integration comes when you live so consciously that even the traps become teachers, even the wounds become gateways, even the suffering becomes alchemy. Then the ashrams have no hold, for their grip requires your unconsciousness, and when you reach that level of awareness, you begin not just to live within the wheel, but to guide others through it. You become, in a sense, a teacher disguised as a student. The practical path is simple, though never easy. Withdraw your energy from fear, invest it in awareness, and create new rituals that honor joy, love, and truth. Each act is small, but each small act bends the wheel toward liberation. There comes a moment in every journey when the road no longer stretches forward, but begins to curve back into itself, revealing that the path you have walked was always a circle. The Zodiac Wheel is such a path. It is the curriculum of the soul, 12 gates opening into 12 chambers, each demanding its lesson, each offering both a gift and a trap. To live unconsciously is to stumble through these chambers again and again, repeating patterns without recognition. To awaken is to realize that you are not the prisoner of the wheel, but the one who chose to walk it. This is the final paradox. The prison door was never locked. It was built of stories told by empires, by families, by religions, by your own unhealed wounds, the narratives of fear, of lack, of powerlessness, of separation. These are the bars that keep the soul circling. But stories can be rewritten. Narratives can be dissolved. The wheel is not an eternal sentence. It is a school, and schools exist to be graduated from. The transcript reminds us that after death, souls often encounter the tunnel of light. The reviewing guides, the loving but persuasive invitation to return. To some, this is liberation. To others, it is recycling. The difference is not in what appears, but in the consciousness that perceives it. A soul still convinced it must pay debts, still bound to the belief that it is incomplete, will accept the invitation to return. A soul that has integrated the 12 lessons, that remembers its completeness, can step beyond. Liberation is not granted from outside, it is chosen from within. And so it is with life. Liberation is not waiting at the end of time. It is seated in each moment of awareness. Every time you refuse to repeat a destructive pattern, you take a step off the wheel. Every time you recognize pain as curriculum instead of punishment, you loosen the grip of repetition. Every time you choose love, not as a sentimental wood, but as a fierce recognition of the divine in yourself and others, you alter the architecture of the classroom. You begin to teach rather than merely learn. To live in this way is not to escape humanity, but to embrace it fully. Awakening is not about leaving the world. It is about inhabiting it with such presence that even the mundane becomes sacred. Washing dishes becomes meditation. Walking through crowded streets becomes an act of communion. Speaking truth in a room full of silence becomes ritual. The wheel does not vanish, but it changes. You dance with it rather than being dragged by it. You become both the dancer and the dance. What does this mean for you here, now? It means that the curriculum is unfolding in the very struggles you face. The parent who drains you, the partner who mirrors your wounds, the work that feels suffocating, the illness that slows your steps. All of these are classrooms. You can resist them, curse them, repeat them, or you can lean into them, ask them what they are teaching, and integrate their lessons. The first choice binds you to the will. The second begins to dissolve it. It also means that you are not alone. Just as individual souls cycle through lessons, so too does humanity. We are living in a time when the wheel itself seems to spin faster, forcing collective lessons into visibility. The fear campaigns, the fractured politics, the illusions of connection through machines, these are the classrooms of our age. And just as with individuals, the choice is ours. Recycle the same unconscious responses, or awaken to new ways of being. You are not a puppet, though the strings of culture, family, and fear may have tried to convince you otherwise. You are the author of the script. You are the consciousness that designed the curriculum. You are the student and the teacher, the prisoner and the liberator. The story of reincarnation and the Zodiac Wheel is not simply about lifetimes strung across eternity. It is about this very moment, about whether you will remember. The invitation, then, is simple, though it trembles with immensity. Live as if every moment is sacred curriculum. See the traps as teachers. See the wounds as gateways. See the wheel not as your prison, but as your path. And when the lessons ripen, when you have danced with every archetype, when you have carried courage, grounding, clarity, compassion, authenticity, service, balance, transformation, wisdom, responsibility, vision, and surrender into wholeness, you will find that you no longer circle the wheel. You stand at its center. From there, you may choose to return as a bodhisattva, to help others through their classrooms, or to dissolve back into the infinite. Beyond lessons, beyond cycles, the awakening is not the end. It is the beginning of freedom, the remembrance that you are infinite consciousness, temporarily experiencing limits, and that even in this moment you are free to rewrite the script. The prison door was never locked. The keys were always in your hand. Now, the question remains, will you open it?